Hey, what is up, guys? Blunt Guts here. This is a Watch Over Realms video. Thank you so much for tuning into my channel. I appreciate it. Please do like and subscribe if you do enjoy my content. So I want to talk about Lucius here. He's somebody that I have made a number of videos on in the past few weeks. I know a lot of other creators have as well. Everybody was hyping this guy up. We all pulled on his banner thinking he was going to be incredible. And I got to say, to this point, he has been kind of disappointing. Although, disclaimer, I don't think a lot of that is his fault at the end of the day. I think that the hero in and of himself is okay. He's not amazing, but I do think that there's some steps that Moonton needs to take in order to fix him. The main thing, really, is the way that he's interacting with Semrah right now, and that is more of a Semrah issue, not a Lucius issue. But there is another thing I want to talk about first. Let's talk about what's going on with Guild Boss 2. So behind me here is a thumbnail from a Fastidious video that he put out a couple of days ago. Lucius broken in a bad way. And I don't know if that's wholly accurate. At the end of the day, Lucius is not really what's broken. It's really more Semrah, and specifically the Aegis buff that Semrah applies to himself in the second phase of the encounter, of the Guild Boss 2 encounter. Basically what Semrah does is every time he casts Aegis mode, he applies a 10% damage reduction from both physical and magic damage to himself. This can stack up to 6 times. So if he goes through the Aegis mode 6 times, theoretically he should have 6 buffs on himself. However, it really wasn't working that way in the game. What we found out when we were able to finally dispel these buffs is that he's actually reapplying remove buffs from himself as well. So the first time he casts it, he'll apply 1 buff, but if you remove that, the next time, instead of just adding 1 more additional buff, he's going to apply 2 buffs. I think that's the way it works. Honestly, it's kind of hard to determine exactly what's going on. I did a bad job of explaining this in my damage test video. Fastidious really went through this. He showed gameplay of this, and I'm not even going to try to replicate it. I'm going to encourage you, if you want more details on why this is broken and how it's not working appropriately, I think you should go to Fastidious' video, which I'm going to have linked in the description for my video. Go and check that out. Amazing content there, a lot of really good description, and he did a better job breaking it down than I could. So I'm not going to go into that depth, but because I did mention it in my damage testing video last week, I did want to kind of address it here, because I think that what I said then was not completely accurate. The gist was right, but the number of buffs that were being applied and the way it broke down, I don't think was accurate in that video. So I do want you to go and check out Fastidious' video and really get a thorough understanding of how this is working currently. The other thing that we should take away from this video is that the developers are aware of the issue. They have recognized that it is a bug, which is great. Like I said, when I did produce my damage testing video and I did include this little tidbit in it, I thought that that was just the way that the boss worked, and I thought it just meant that Lucius's value was going to be diminished because he wasn't going to be able to remove buffs in the way that we thought he was going to be able to. I'm glad to say that does not seem like that's going to be the case. It seems like they are going to address this issue, and we should be getting much more mileage out of Lucius in Guild Boss 2 going forward, which is just wonderful news. However, I think that the introduction of this Dispel mechanic is going to be a recurring issue in this game, and I'm going to give you one example in a second as to why I think that's the case. So I am in the challenge mode of the beta stages of the anniversary event here, and you can see Valderon is pathing around right now. I'm just going to call your attention to the fact that he does not have any buffs on himself right now, and I'm going to talk at you for a second. I'm going to explain to you why I'm here. So if you don't know, Valderon applies a stacking buff to himself over time in this encounter, in which he increases his attack as well as his damage reduction by 10% each stack of the buff. That buff is going to be applied in a second. I'm going to drop in Lucius. We're going to see if that buff can be removed or not. I've received several complaints about this, so I think you can probably read between the lines and you'll see where this is going. However, I just want to show you, so I can just make my point here, that this is something that is going on in the game. I think when he gets up into this corner, that is when he is going to be putting that buff on himself, if I'm not mistaken. Let's see it, Valderon. There it is. And I am going to drop in Lucius in a second, and because I do have a Noma in the comp, Lucius is going to get some initial rage, and he should be able to cast his ultimate very, very quickly. I just need to wait for these enemies to clear, but I will show you exactly what happens when you cast Lucius's ultimate, which should be removing buffs, but is not going to be doing what we think it's going to. So There, we should be clear now. Now, Lucius, I just activated his ultimate. He's pounding away. You can see whenever he does this like little spin move, I believe that is when the pursuit is going out. So we're not really seeing them there, but there you go. There's a spin move, and there's the pursuit going out. But what you can see is that the buff remains. The buff is still on Valderon. I'm just going to click there to slow this down. I can even click on it up here. We can look at the tooltip, potentially, maybe. If it'll let me, it won't. I think if I pause it, it will, though. Yes, the buff remains up there. So here's the language of the buff. This is the tooltip that is provided. When empowered by Demonic Essence, permanently increases attack and damage reduction by 10%. Now, I will just state here that I recognize that it does say permanently in the buff description. However, it doesn't say that it can't be dispelled. I'll also note that if you go to the monster manual in here and you go to Valderon, I don't see any mention of this buff anywhere. Now, maybe I've missed it someplace. Maybe I have, but I've read through this a couple times and I did not see it in there. Somebody can find it. You can tell me where I missed it. However, I think this is going to be a continuous issue going forward. This is not really about this specific instance. I get that there is some ambiguity, again, with the nature of like the language permanent in there. Maybe it's not supposed to be dispelled. Maybe that is the developer's way of telling us that the buff cannot be dispelled. However, it does not specifically state that. And I think given the fact that Lucius is new to the game, that if they are going to be using buffs as a mechanic moving forward, one, I'd like to see Lucius's ability be able to be leveraged in a lot of different situations. That would be nice. Pulling him should have some benefits because he doesn't do amazing damage by any means. He does good damage, but not great damage. And he doesn't really bring anything else to the table other than that because he's in kind of a subpar faction. Now, granted, they are bringing in a new Watcher Lord that's going to be released at some point in the future. We don't know when really, but sometime in the next 6 months, I think, is what I heard Destin say at one point. I'm just concerned about the way that this could snowball. So we all know that Moonton has not been the most forthright in their game with game data, with the way that they word skills and tooltips and things like that. Hell, look at the monster attributes on Valderon right now. How much HP and attack does this guy have? A lot. Beyond that, I couldn't tell you. I couldn't put values on it. Every single one of my heroes, I can go to a tooltip and I can see in the character screen exactly how much attack, defense, HP that they have. However, I have no idea what any of the enemies have, and I'm not sure why this design decision was made, but it is just a recurring theme that there is a lack of specificity, a lack of clarity in the way that they word skill descriptions and tooltips in this game. If the buff can't be dispelled, now that we have a dispeller, you do need to put it in the tooltip. And I think that regardless of which side of the fence you fall on, whether or not you think that permanently means that it can't be dispelled, or the fact that it doesn't say that it can't be dispelled means that you should be able to dispel it, whichever you think, I think we can all agree that there is a measure of ambiguity in the way that this is worded. I'd love to see them take this to heart. The more complexity they add into this game, the more important it is for them to phrase everything that they do want to communicate to the player base in a clear, concise manner that very, very much communicates the intention of whatever it is that they're trying to do in here. And in this case, this buff, if it can't be dispelled, particularly since Lucius was just released, it should say cannot be dispelled. Or hell, there's another game that I played where there is a different border that appears around the buff when it is a permanent buff. There just needs to be some kind of indicator, some kind of consistent indicator that will show us whether or not this can be removed. I do think that there are some concerns as well, because as much as we like the idea of having a dispeller in the game, if you can't use it anywhere, then what's the point? So what am I trying to communicate if I'm not saying that there is certainty that this should function one way or another in that Valderon encounter that I showed you? I'm not really trying to say anything about the Valderon encounter, but what I am trying to say is that moving forward, we need to hold Moonton accountable for the way that they phrase things in their game, specifically because they are profiting off of us. You know, a lot of us did spend money on these banners over the weekend. They make a lot of money off of the player base. If they're not communicating effectively to people, then it leads to misconceptions about the way that a hero can be leveraged into different teams, the way that they're going to interact with heroes and enemies, content, encounters, whatever you want to call it, whatever it is in the game. We need to have clarity on what it is that we're actually buying. Otherwise, people are going to get upset. People are going to want to leave the game. People are, this is the kind of thing that long-term can really just hurt a game like this. So Moonton has been receptive in the past to constructive criticism, suggestions from the player base. I think that this is the kind of thing that the more, like I was saying, the more complex this game gets, the more important it is going to be that they communicate to us clearly in all aspects, but in particular in the way the different mechanics in the game do work. So with that being said, I hope that they take this as a learning experience. It sounds like they're going to fix Semrah based on what Fastidious has told us, and I hope that that also carries over into the way that they represent buffs and debuffs and really everything else in this game, because there's just a lot of ambiguity in different areas. Yeah, so that's all I'm saying. Let me know what you think. Am I being crazy here? At the end of the day, I received multiple complaints about this, and I felt like it was worth making a video to address, if for no other reason than just to start a conversation about what this hero could be, what we'd like him to be, and how this new added layer, this Dispel mechanic, is going to impact the game moving forward, and what we need to see from Moonton in order to make it a fun and enriching experience. So that's my thought. I've been Blunt Guts. Thank you for watching my video. I do appreciate it. Please do like and subscribe if you do enjoy my content. I'll catch you all next time.